Good afternoon, my friends. This is the Grim Flayer. I hope you're doing very well today, and welcome to another Grim gameplay. This one featuring Snowy Sultai, or perhaps Snowtie. Either way, it's a bug deck. It's a cat deck with Lurrus of the Dream Den as companion, and it is wintry. Despite spring on the horizon, we are still deep in the winter with this video. Icefang Quattle, Ascendant Spirit, and some snow-covered basic lands. See to that end. This list is brought to us by Bobby, aka Zaraz202. Bobby, a wonderful supporter, confidant tier, very welcome, intelligent, likable presence in the Discord, and a great player. Has made it to a couple of the top 8s of our tournaments. Shout out to Bobby, especially for the recent top 8 run in No Ban List Modern. I will not reveal exactly who won, exactly how well Bobby did. Those videos, I believe, will be out after this one, right? At least the finals, maybe all of them will be out after this one. So no spoiler zone, but Bobby's one of our top 8 competitors. And Bobby played kind of a similar deck in No Ban List Modern, had a lot of fun with it. He was on Bant Countertop, obviously. This is a little bit different. This is not a control deck like Bant Countertop. This is still a mid-range deck, but it does leverage permission, and obviously we're not we're not really getting into the truly broken things that the Bant Countertop deck did in No Ban List Modern. This is kind of a different take. It's a different strategy. It's not just powered down because it's regular Modern. It is different altogether. But Bobby says that this list was born out of a desire to play with Icefang Quattle, because that's a big part of the Bant Countertop list in No Ban List Modern that he put together. And he also really wanted to test the idea of recurring value creatures like Snapcaster and Icefang off of Lurrus, that is, similarly to Legacy Grixis, where you use K-Command to buy back Strix and Snapcaster Mage. So Bobby definitely pulling from some older and more powerful, less restricted formats for inspiration for this modern list, which is very cool, and which makes a lot of sense. You know, the Sultai color trio certainly pulling a little bit more weight in Legacy, for example, than it tends to in Modern. So as we go through the deck tech and as we go through the gameplay, perhaps we'll see why. We'll see some of the pros and some of the cons, and it's always an interesting puzzle to try to find a Sultai list that really checks all of the boxes. But thank you once again to Bobby for this. Thank you to all Patreon supporters. Let's do a few minutes worth of deck tech before we dive into some games. Alright guys, so as mentioned, this is not a control deck, this is a mid-range deck. This is evidenced most by the core of 3 each Inquisition, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, also by the presence of Tarmogoyf. Control decks do not do these things. They don't play tempo negative sorcery speed 1-for-1 interaction, and they don't play Tarmogoyf either as a general rule in Modern, but we do have blue, so this is basically a rock deck more than anything splashing blue. And I've done that before. I've played blue rock, where it is operating more like a rock deck, with just a little bit of help from Snapcaster Mage and sideboard cards, basically. Bobby has taken it more in the direction of blue, and he's done so in a really intelligent way. So Icefang Quattle is just an incredibly powerful card if you can accommodate it. Bobby has done his very best to accommodate it with all of these basic lands, more than you would usually see, admittedly, in a 3-color mid-range deck. This definitely has some pros if you're against a lot of Blood Moon or Path to Exile or a lot of aggro decks, but that assumes that you can actually make the colors you need. And if you cast your eyes over the spells, we have relatively significant color demands in this deck, including Quattle itself. And, we have a blue-green, we have a Simic card, a Dimir card with Drown in the Lock, and a Golgari card with Abrupt Decay, all at the 2-drop slot, to say nothing of trying to double spells. So the mana base is definitely strained a little bit. We'll see how that plays out, but Quattle, very, very powerful card nonetheless. And another thing alongside the Snowlands that really fits well alongside Quattle in the deck in general is the blue Hex Drinker. It is Ascendant Spirit. This is a new technology from Kaldheim. If you don't know, it's a 1/1 blue 1-drop snow creature. It's a spirit, and it has activated abilities that are snow lands only. So the idea in this deck is that maybe you hold up some snow lands to hold up instant speed effects. If not, you can operate with Ascendant Spirit on the end step, growing it to the next quote-unquote level. Unlike Hex Drinker, this can be done at instant speed, therefore plays way better with permission. We also are playing better with Icefang Quattle, which itself can be flashed in, and we have a good amount of our other interaction is at instant speed. You can be holding up Thought Scours as well. Finally, Ascendant Spirit, again, counts as a snow permanent, which is going to help Quattle get Death Touch, and pitches to Force of Negation. So many, many reasons to include this very intriguing card, right? Definitely a really cool one. It's after you sink 2 snow mana into it, it becomes a Spirit Warrior, 2/3. Next time you sink 3 into it, it becomes a Warrior Angel Spirit as a 4/4 with a flying counter. And then after you sink 4 into it, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters, becoming a 6/6, and gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card. And again, these things can be done at instant speed as combat tricks as well, or on the end step if you don't need to use other effects during the course of your opponent's turn. And I spent a lot of time talking about that, but I want to stress that I think this is brilliant deck building from Bobby. I think Ascendant Spirit is in many ways the glue that makes all of the rest of this possible. You might be straining to really maximize Quattle vis-a-vis Death Touch, if nothing else, without Spirit. You might also be straining to maximize Force of Negation. You might also be wondering, okay, do we play a Hex Drinker, or do we play something else at the 1-drop slot? Because 1-drops are desirable when you want to buy things back with Luris, right? Or just generally be proactive the times you need to take a proactive stance. So Ascendant Spirit, really, really interesting addition. Having really zeroed in on that, let's zoom back out and look at the deck as a whole. 21 lands, which is my favorite number in a 4 Mishra's Bauble, Luris of the Dream Den mid-range deck. I've really come to like that. We do have some awkwardness in terms of, like, sometimes we're just going to draw basic lands and not be able to fully cast our spells. There is also a tension between getting shock lands early to fix our mana and getting basic lands early, not only for all the usual reasons you get basics, but to turn on Ascendant Spirit, Icefang Quattle, and the like. To that end, an Ice Tunnel has been included, just a Dimir dual land that ETB's tapped, but is snow. Definitely can help us do both things at the cost, sometimes maybe of a little bit of tempo. We are playing some classic Zendikar expeditions for our shocklands, and otherwise relatively normal printings of everything else. We have a single Dark Slit Shores alongside a full 10 fetch lands to really make this 6 basic land mana base functional. The aforementioned 4 Bauble, 3 copies of Force of Negation. This gives the Dimir deck a really potent way to interact against high ceiling opposing decks, whether it be turn 1 Amulet of Vigor out of the Amulet Titan deck, whether it be opposing combo decks, you name it, Force of Negation can stop it at least a lot of the time in a way that a mid-range deck usually can't. We have the aforementioned core black mid-range cards, which really solidify its identity as Sultai, as black-based, as mid-range. We're still following a lot of those same play patterns. Abrupt Decay to that end is not only a very nice Snapcaster Mage target, as are a lot of the 1-drop black spells. It also helps solidify the Sultai identity. We are able to outgrind the opponent in the late game if we interact efficiently early on. Abrupt Decay, very, very good at that. 4 copies of Thought Scour. This card gives us a nice high floor with Snapcaster Mage with those turn 1s. It lets us use maybe these potentially awkward 3 basic islands. You know, you're going to draw one of them a lot of the time. You know, the stray awkward island can always be used to Thought Scour, fill up the graveyard, grow the Goyf, find Snapcaster targets. You can turn on Drawn on the Lock this way by Thought Scouring the opponent as well. Speaking of Drawn on the Lock, this is a great, great mid-range card. Permission, again, bringing a really unique dimension to mid-range, but the bad thing about Permission in mid-range is you often need to answer the board if you're behind on board. That's a very bad top deck as a mid-range player, but Drown in the Lot can kill their stuff too. Beautiful card if you can accommodate it, which we can. We've already talked about Spirit and Quattle, the Snow Patrol, if you will. We've got 3 of the former, 4 of the latter, 4 copies of Tarmogoyf as well, because often we will, despite all of our tricks and all of our instant speed cuteness, we will have to go discard into Goyf, take the proactive stance, take the front foot. Tarmogoyf rewards us arguably even more for playing a mid-range game in this deck than it does in Rocker Jund. So very, very nice addition there. And then 3 copies of Snapcaster Mage, a good 2-for-1. We all know and love this card, I hope. And a single Dark Confidant. Bobby did make a couple tweaks based on my suggestions. We initially had 2 Bobs in the sideboard. We have kind of brought one into the main and cut the other from the side, but Bob's still establishing his presence in this Sultai deck. You love to see it. The sideboard is really, really interesting. So let's start with the more familiar things. One each of Collective Brutality, Fatal Push, Assassin's Trophy, Veil of Summer. Viewers of this channel know all about those, but we also have a Blight Beetle in the black cards, and Blight Beetle is some interesting anti-Heliod tech, also very good against humans, and Hardened Scales Affinity. So, you know, can Heliod answer this with Skyclave Apparition, Path to Exile? Yes, but, you know, we have permission, we have discard, we have removal, we have a clock. Blight Beetle is a hate card that, you know, they do have to find an answer for. Maybe we can protect it. Maybe they just won't naturally have an answer. Maybe Blight Beetle locks them out while we beat down with Ascendant Spirit and Snapcaster Mage. Who knows? But that is why Blight Beetle is involved. We also have 3 Nile Spellbomb, needs no introduction, 1 Pithing Needle, which most lists I've received have had me play Pithing Needle lately. It's definitely a card that a lot of decks can justify using right now. And then 2 copies of Damping Sphere, which I think is here because it's got decent game against a lot of different combo decks. Damping Sphere might be a little bit more appealing in a deck with permission that can protect it, or that can play at instant speed, so you're not taxing yourself out of the game too badly by being unable to double spell at sorcery speed a lot of the time. And on top of that, you know, blue doesn't really bring any extra land destruction like red does, right? So alongside Lurrus, Damping Sphere in this deck, I think makes a lot of sense. And then we have some more blue action out of the sideboard, Mystical Dispute against blue decks, and Ether Gust against red and green decks. Again, notably, these cards can be snapped back as well. So thank you once again to Bobby. That's the rundown of his very nice Sultai brew. Let's get into some games. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all Patreon supporters. Alright, this hand's looking pretty good, right? Besides the lack of blue, looks like a good old rock hand with a lot of interaction. We'll keep it. Gotta draw a blue card. Blue land, rather, to play our blue cards, obviously, but these discard spells should go a long way toward breaking the opponent's plan up, and we've also drawn a Bob for a nice proactive T2 play. Alright, we are against Electrodominance, Crashing Footfalls, Lightning Bolt, Opt. Well, there's actually some temptation to take away the Lightning Bolt so we can stick T2 Bob. I think I'm going to do that. We're definitely going to get punished if they draw the absolute nuts in the first couple turns, but I'm basically going to dare them to have it, right? And they have bottomed with that first opt and then just played out a land and said go. All right. I'm feeling kind of priced into doing this because of the fail rate of our hand, right, with the lack of blue. We're punished if they, like, drew an As Foretold the last turn. They've not, so we're rewarded. Nice. Greater Gargadon suspended. We know Crashing Footfalls is still in hand. Bob flips a blue land. Hey, it's all going to plan. You love to see it. Alright, so we're clearly shocking in this Watery Grave. Let's begin with a Thoughtseize. I'm not going to lead on Bauble because they have a fetch land and that's just 2 Footfalls in hand. Got it, so we'll take one of them. Always a tricky deck to play against, is it not? At least I find it that way. Alright, so let's see what opponent is up to. They've got As Foretold coming off the top, so we'll be able to beat that with Drown in the Luck. Let's flash in the Ice Fang to improve our anemic clock. Snapcaster Mage, Ascendant Spirit, some very interesting ones, and Tarmogoyf. Okay. You know, I like Tarmogoyf here, I think. Just for the fastest possible clock that also allows us to hold up Drown in the Luck as well as our life total is getting pretty low. I better get another snowland here. As well as just Ice Fang again if they don't, for some reason, test the waters for permission. That'll grow Goyf nicely. And that'll be the game. Wow, Sultai. Just classic black base disruption advantage in clock with a little bit of blue permission to interact in a way that we normally couldn't. Very nice synergy with Mishra's Bob as well to give us that information. So, Ether Gust beats some of these cards. It could be interesting. Definitely want Collective Brutality. Think we want Mystical Dispute. And do we want Ether Gust? I actually don't really know. Trim a Fatal Push. I think leaving them in to some extent is okay. Because they will resolve Crashing Footfall some of the time. Sometimes you just have to clean up the tokens. I'm feeling like I want to do relatively conservative sideboarding here, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to gut a Guadal just because this is a bit of a race. Or should we leave in blue cards for Force of Negation, if nothing else? Alright, with that in mind, push out. Do we want Quattle or an Ether Gust? I think it's kind of 50-50. Do it like that. Alright, I am into this keep. Love that T1 Inquisition. Very low curve functional, with the prospect of a third land allowing us to go snap Inquisition to really break up their hand. Okay, Overgrown Tomb. So there is a tension between wanting to get the snow-covered swamp down to be more painless and facilitate Ascendant Spirit activations, and between wanting to cast Quattle. I think I'm going to err on the side of casting Quattle. So let's shock in Overgrown Tomb. Inquisition U. Restore Balance, Mana Leak, Electrodominance. I think we're just going to take Electrodominance. Try to stop them from doing much. Given our instant speed effects, we can play to a relatively significant degree on the unstep to time walk them in the face of Mana Leak. And we're drawing more lands, which at the end of the day is not the worst. So yeah, I'm just going to shock this in and say go. Get a nice Fang down, then maybe snap Inquisition is the play? I don't know. We'll see. No Death Touch in sight for the Quattle. That's okay. It's not especially relevant in this matchup. Just draw another Inquisition and a Dark Confidant. Alright. Let's attack. I may actually consider using Bob as the Inquisition bait. That might be playing a little bit scared, right? But nah, we'll still lead on Inquisition. I think trading Inquisition for a Mana Leak's pretty good. Obviously, if they had the combo rolled up already, they'd be using it to some degree, right? So let's just make that trade, then stick a Bobby. Yep, they didn't have it. Cool. Flip Quattle, Collective Brutality, that'll hit. Alright, so if we get Snow-Covered Island off of Polluted Delta, that plus Overgrown Tomb cast everything in our hand. So why don't we just simply lead on Brutality? Do we want to escalate at all? Probably not. We have enough cards to do so. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world just to trade a little bit of advantage for some ability to race. But yeah, let's take away Restore Balance. They have a Crashing Footfalls in hand. We're bluffing Permission pretty hard, too. They show us a land we don't know about, so they are just kind of flooded. Alright, so Snow-Covered Island feels good here. Painless, getting us insulated a little bit against Blood Moon, should that be in the deck, and also getting some more snow on the field. Mishra's Bauble, Thoughtseize. Alright, so do we want to just snap Brutality to get rid of that Footfalls? There are other ways to do it, but I think that's a fine one. I love Snapcaster Mage, let's use it. Or maybe we'll just Inquisition so we can hold up Thought Scour, right? I'm not bobbling first because they're going to fetch anyway. They didn't? Okay. Fair enough. That's the concession. Okay, absolutely what Sultai wants to do. Value, Permission, giving it a unique angle, instant speed effects for days. That was exactly, Bobby, what I think you designed the deck for. That was impressive. Alright, a bit of a weird hand in a few ways, but I'm going to keep it. We don't have a way to set up Drawn in the Lock. Hopefully the opponent will do that for us. We have, like, functionality, but not really. So, I think in this case, I'm actually benefiting more from bobbling myself to see if I want to shock in to hold anything up, which we don't. So let's just get Overgrown Tomb down tapped, which throws them off of our scent, I think, the best. But maybe bobbling ourselves is a sign that we're a deck that plays instant speed and probably therefore blue effects. But yeah, they could be thinking Jund for Lightning Bolt or just, Fatal Push and Rock. So who knows? Another Snapcaster, kind of the last thing we need at the moment. We need a 1-mana piece of relevant interaction to turn this whole hand on. Imagine just drawing like an Inquisition or Thoughtseize right now. The hand would become amazing. We draw Abrupt Decay. Okay, that's actually something. I'm going to choose to shock in here. We're going to do Breeding Pool because it holds up Decay or Snapcaster for pressure if we need it against this Inventor's Fair Chromatic Star deck. Obviously shouldn't decay the star. It'll draw when put into the battlefield, unlike its peer Chromatic Sphere. That's why Star sees play in a lot of decks, and Sphere only really in Tron. Geeker Wellspring, another thing that we can't decay profitably. Okay, Snap for pressure it is. It's a bit of a shame because, in theory, whatever deck we're against can probably get Snap decayed out of the game a lot of the time, but that's not what our hand is permitting, so the draw of another dead Drown in the Lock. It's going to be live at some point, but it's dead right now. So I think we just put Lurrus into hand, threaten to establish the Lurrus Bauble loop, rather than hoping they take a bunch of actions that turn on a held-up Drown in the Lock. Like I said, definitely a weird keep. A value-positive keep, though, right? Grinding Station. That looks like a decay target to me, right? Terrarian. Alrighty. Thoughtseize. Alright, so do we Thoughtseize and Decay, or do we Decay and hold up Drown in the Loch? They have 5 cards in hand. I think we're supposed to Decay and hold up Drown in the Loch. We actually don't have enough black sources, do we, to do all of this stuff? We can't do... We only have 1 black source, so we can't do either. Man, that is rough. Okay, so we're only casting 1 spell. So there's actually some incentive for it to be Snap Thoughtseize, I guess, but we should probably just hold up. Or we should probably just Decay Grinding Station and hope they don't kill us. Oh, that's annoying. Alright. You know, the mana requirements for this deck are actually really steep. Especially when you factor in the need for snow on top of everything else. Alright, I don't know exactly what their combo is, but I'm assuming it's Grinding Station plus other pieces. These pieces have value with Grinding Station and can probably loop under a lot of circumstances, but I'm assuming they need something involving Grinding Station to combo off. So at least we're answering a combo piece, right? But the inefficiency here is we're like so close to being just doing everything a Sultai deck wants to do against this deck. Semblance Anvil. Ooh. Seems like something I would absolutely have drowned in the loch. Would have basically taken up their whole turn, and this certainly seems like a combo piece as well. Free Mind Stone. Free Guild Globe. Where's my Collector Roof when I need him? Look at this deck. Very, very intriguing stuff. Mere Retriever. Chromatic Starch, stumping the whole hand. Very impressive. But if they don't have another Grinding Station, then I guess we can just like flash and snap for pressure and try to hold up Drown in the Lochs for the rest of the game. Yeah, if we had a second black source, I think we'd be doing great. They're going to dig plenty here. Hopefully they just don't find Grinding Station this turn. Alright, they didn't. So, Drown in the Loch is going to be live. Problem is we can't really attack into Mere Retriever profitably yet, so I'm actually not even going to flash in another snap for pressure. Tarmogoyf, though. We can play that and still hold up Drown in the Loch. Sure. Just to set ourselves up for when we do want to turn it sideways. But I'm not going to give them a Grinding Station in hand, because they have at least a couple other cantrips on the field. Possibly on the end step, if they don't give us a Drown in the Loch target, though, we should drown the Retriever and start attacking. Fascinating. Fascinating one to navigate against when I've never played it. They're gaining life off Inventor's Fair, too, worth noting. Trash for treasure. Okay. So we Drown in the Loch, counter this, because it goes straight from the graveyard to the battlefield. And normally that'd be a really nice 2-for-1, but of course with Wellspring they're drawing anyway, so it's not quite, but still. We've got an important interaction point, the permission looking really good yet again here, although the degree to which it's been good again is a little bit hampered by our lack of perfect colors. So normally you'd never, the reason for that, I think the list is really well designed, but you normally never play quite this many basic lands, I think, is the main culprit, alongside this 3-color spread of spells, as you do here, but you've got to play all those basics for the snow effects, the Quattles and the Ascendant Spirits, and that's why we are sometimes going to be inefficient or perhaps lose to our own mana base, but they've got another Trash for Treasure. That's pretty rough. Pretty rough. So they not only managed to make 6 mana this turn, they had 2 copies of those cards, and I'm assuming we're just dead now, but we'll see what they do. Maybe they can fizzle. Eager Wellspring, the opposite of fizzling. That gives them 2 more mills, another draw. They just, basically have to draw a bunch of lands, right? Stop drawing artifacts, that's what we need them to do. There's a Mere Retriever. And this can buy back Eager Wellspring, or whatever else is even better than that, but Wellspring is a good engine card. Oh, it's the double Retriever loop? Okay. I guess that just kills us. Good enough for me. Well, yeah, again, I think if we had double black on turn 4, I believe it was, I think we would have won that game, honestly. In any case, surely Pithing Needle will have many, many targets. Damping Sphere probably stops them from really winning. Nile Spellbomb seems good, but we also don't want to overboard here. Brutality, only really hitting Trash for Treasure, maybe not supposed to do that so much. I think I'm going to play about 2 Spellbomb, probably both Sphere, Pithing Needle Trophy, sure. We'll cut all our Fatal Pushes. Trim around the edges with some of the dirtilier stuff, I guess. I don't want to go too low on blue cards, though. But, our black interaction's good. Our Tarmogoyfs and Bob is good. Yeah, I don't know exactly where to go from here. I think even though Force of Negation is good, I'm going to cut one because I think I'm supposed to side heavily into these non-blue effects and trim around the edges with blue, so that kind of prompts me to cut a Force as well, even though I think Force is really good here. Well, I'm just going to cut a Bauble, too, just to kind of make the 60 work. All right. I think I'll keep this one, but the double island is so bad, because we can't cast Abrupt Decay with it yet, but I do think it's keepable, because we like all the cards we've got in our hand. Opponent will mulligan. And we can control our own draw step with Bauble, which is what I'm going to do. It's not that necessary, because frankly, most draws are pretty good. Right? But I'm still going to do it. Maybe we'll see Thought Scour on top, for example, want to lead on island. Thought Seize. Alright. We're going slow, but I think we're supposed to draw that. Tis a shame to go so slow, right? OP with a chromatic star. You got it. We need Overgrown Tomb here. And I'd love to draw, again, just like Thought Scour for something to do alongside this Thoughtseize. But lots of other good draws, including another non-blue land. Damping Sphere is good. I don't think we're supposed to play it quite yet, though. I think we're supposed to Thoughtseize here, clear the way for Damping Sphere, and also because Damping Sphere is going to slow us down, too. So let's assume that they don't have, like, a turn 2 kill. It just threw a Thoughtseize here, right? Alright, Wellspring, Mindstone, Semblance, Anvil. I think we gotta take the Anvil. There is some temptation to just, like, get rid of Mindstone. Or, no, it'd be Wellspring, because, yeah, from the battlefield only. I mean, there's temptations to get rid of other things and play more of a value game, but we've seen what Semblance Anvil can do. But, you know, maybe with Damping Sphere we're supposed to leave Semblance Anvil. I'm not certain about that, actually, but it's a safe take, right? They just draw a Grinding Station. Holy crap. Well, that sucks. Alright, now we definitely just, like, need to go Damping Sphere. Polluted Delta. Oh, cancel. We can actually just decay the Grinding Station. I think I'll do that. We have to fetch another blue land, which is kind of bad either way, unless we're just getting basic swamp. I'll just get Watery Grave. But I'd love to have a second tomb to get right now, given our islands in hand. Hate to keep complaining about the land situation, but it really is hamstringing our efficiency here. I get to mill us in response. Got it. In general, that's something we're, of course, totally fine with. I know that's their win condition, but a little kind of value milling. It's not like they're a mill deck playing mill spells. I think that's totally fine with us. Oh, Damping Sphere, though, it's worth mentioning, is a nice fit in this deck because it can... you know, you can play it or play something on your turn, and then you have, again, these instant speed effects. They got another Trash for Treasure. Man, their draws, I have to say, have been really good. Have been really, really good. So Ghost Quarter is the only card in their hand right now. Okay. So now we gotta go D-Sphere. Or we could go Snap Decay. It's still probably pretty safe to go Snap Decay, in all honesty. I'm going to follow my mid-range instincts, and do that. Fix our mana a little bit more by getting a... Oh, shoot, I had the wrong land. Yep. Oof. Yeah, probably should have just played Island. Anyway, I didn't pay attention to... sorry, I didn't pay attention to the what had been blindly milled by them. Okay, so that's our only fetchable left. Good to know. We can still go Snap Decay, it's fine. And yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. In a way, I guess maybe it was better to fetch there so we don't get another fetchable blindly milled. And they've had to make some value negative plays here to kind of start trying to go off in the face of our interaction. So, like, it feels bad to hold off the Damping Sphere and hold off the Damping Sphere, but ultimately it's probably correct. So we're going to bauble them. Chromatic Star. They've got Buried Ruin. So we're definitely playing D-Sphere. The only question is, do we put Lurrus into hand, or do we hold up Ice Fang as well? I think we're putting Lurrus into hand. Alright, opponents should actually find it pretty tough to win from here, I imagine. Damping Sphere seems really good. But who knows? And they bought back Semblance Anvil, despite the D-Sphere. Maybe they have answers for it. They're hoping to just find the answer and then go off with Anvil, but... Okay, they still have that Ghost Quarter in hand, right? Right. Force of Negation, very nice. This is going to allow us to just do the Lurrus thing and not worry so much. Guess buying back Nile's Spellbomb makes a good amount of sense here. Just a good safety valve. It's not as value positive maybe as like buying back Bauble would be, but we do have. Ooh, okay. I was assuming we didn't have a fetchable, but we do actually have basic forest to get, so that was my bad. As far as sequencing, obviously should have left up black, but when I did all that, I was assuming that we actually didn't have another fetchable to get. But we do, because I was the last time I fetched was with Polluted Delta, where we didn't see the forest, right? So should have grabbed the forest and had an Overgrown Tomb open to clear out their graveyard with and draw a card. But we just have way too many value in log pieces, so it does not matter. Nice. Okay, I feel very rewarded for my sequencing there. It might not have been perfect, but I think my broad strategy proved to be correct. It probably could have been easy to get spooked into playing an earlier D-Sphere, and I felt a little sketchy about not doing it, but at the same time, like, justified in sequencing as we did. So thinking about maybe cutting like an Ascendant Spirit, bringing back a Force of Negation on the draw. There's a lack of intuitiveness to that, but again, like our other cards just seem so good, our non-blue cards, right? So we just gotta hope Force lines up. Yeah, I think I like it otherwise. 5-lander with Quattle and Snap. I think we have to mulligan. Sad but true. Not gonna do it. This one's looking good. We're gonna keep, and the only question is which 2-drop to bottom. I think it's going to be Quattle. Even though it has the highest floor of them all, I think we really want to snap Inquisition on turn 3 under a lot of circumstances. So let's put the Snaky back. Let's see what happens. Third game in a row, OP leading on turn 1 Chromatic Star. Very powerful play. We draw another Inquisition, which does seem pretty good. So I think most of our draws are good enough that I'm going to bobble OP rather than myself here. Like, I don't mind the third land. I don't mind most cards that we could draw that's left in our 60. Defense Grid. Whoa! Beating our permission with Defense Grid. Good thing we don't have any right now, but dang, it's pretty rough. They have a Grinding Station and 2 Guild Globes. Easy take at Grinding Station, I guess. And then if they decide to kind of try to curve out by playing Guild Globe over Defense Grid, we'll probably Inquisition away the Defense Grid. Ooh, we also have Force of Negation. We could consider forcing the Defense Grid. Because it's going to be pretty dead anyway without it, right? I think I'll force a Defense Grid if they go for it. This is like some Legacy style play. You'll love to see it. Yeah, sure, why not? It's fun. And I think it makes sense. Dark Confidant. Alright, I'm going to play Bob. Try to draw a third land off of him and more effects and go Goyf into Bob. Or Goyf into Inquisition next turn. I think Bob's a good draw here. Well, we've got so many tools, it's pretty cool. And no matter what ends up happening here... Oh, whoa! What? Did they skip past their turn? I think surely they would have done something there. Well, we're about to find out. I think they skipped past their turn. That's unfortunate. They're about to draw Stomping Ground, okay. Semblance Anvil, Ichor Wellspring, Guild Globes. I'm going to take the Anvil. And that's the game. Yeah, I guess unfortunately they skipped their turn, but we'll take it. Either way, very well fought, really interesting games, showing the upsides and the downsides of Sultai, I guess, in a couple different ways, specifically this build, but we do have enough juice to get over the line and enough relevant interaction. Some really cool stuff. Alright, we've got a weird opener with... I guess I'm going to keep it. But I'm a little leery of it, especially against an Abash deck. There's some things to like. We're very functional. We have relatively painless mana. Let's assume this is like the mono-red Hayashi build, right? We just like need interaction, and that's what we don't have. Like specifically kill spells. We have interaction. We have Force of Negation, but we need more kill spells than we currently have. I'm going to bauble myself to try to get a little card selecting going. Abrupt Decay seems good. So let's play an island, play another bauble. We're going to draw the Decay, then we're going to Thought Scour ourselves. And now let's also bauble the opponent here. Just a mountain, sure. Maybe we will have to force a light up the stage, though. That could be a thing. Pretty happy we drew Abrupt Decay, but you know what? I should have played a Fetch Land. I should have been less tunnel visioned on just painlessness and holding up Thought Scour. We can't Decay T2. That's pretty rough. But we've drawn a Tarmogoyf, which is fine. Normally, we'd like to set up a spot where we're sure it will live. We don't really have that luxury with this hand. They could also very well be a Blood Moon deck, so I think I'm going to go get Forest and just play Goyf. Obviously, they're going to be able to beat it somehow, including with Soulscar Mage Wither effects, but... They go for like a Flame Slash or something, we're probably going to force it. Blood Moon. Yeah, don't actually care. Don't actually care at all. That's actually a real let-off for us. Nice. And we draw Fatal Push. Again, the lack of, like, perfect colors is a little disturbing, but otherwise it's shaping up nicely, my friends. So yeah. Well, let's just hang back and say go, I guess. This does make you realize, though, that, like, a rock deck, for example, that has more painless mana and is double spelling every turn here, or casting a spell every turn on curve because it doesn't have the tension between all the basic lands for Life Total and Blood Moon. Oh yeah, we definitely got to force this stomp. It's going to exile the Bone Crusher, too. So it feels bad to lose Snappy, but well worth it. But you understand the downsides of Sultai here. But, you know, Force of Negation, despite this not being a great showcase for it or for the deck, even Force was really nice there. And now we will decay a Soul Scar to be more mana efficient than Push would be. If only we could start to, like, snap decay them out of the game here, but had to be done, right? We had to do it to them. Excuse me. And we've now drawn a second Fatal Push, which is good. We can't double spell because of Blood Moon, so we're just going to put Lurrus into hand. I think I'm supposed to push the Soul Scar and begin racing here. We're giving them a lot to think about with another push in the back pocket. That makes some sense. Lurrus, probably uncastable for this whole game unless we draw. I think we have a second basic swamp in here. I think we have 3 island, 1 forest, and 2 swamp. Ooh, Seasoned Pyro. Very good against us. And very good in this spot. They do have to pitch another one, though, plus a Firebolt, so now our biggest problem is Abash. They've stalled the game well enough to the point where Goyf's not going to win a race by itself. Ugh, we draw Inquisition. Well, if only that was Thoughtseize, right? If only. Still may be good to cast it here. I think I will. Rather than hold up push. Hope we get another, like, Spyro or something good. We get Bone Crusher, that's great. Nevertheless, I am feeling like Blood Moon is kind of relevant all of a sudden. And again, Abash is the big game winner. If only Lurrus was a Dimir card rather than Orzhov, right? That would make all the difference in the world. Yeah, I feel like this seems like a pretty tough matchup for us, not going to lie. We'll definitely get better post-side. Alright, they make a land drop. They're going to put Abash into hand unless they're going to be really interested in the Spyro tokens, maybe the combined incentive of Spyro tokens plus protecting Abash from, like, Thoughtseize if they're reading us for that. Yeah, they're going to do that. I mean, I'm glad because we can't beat it right now at all. Ascendant Spirit! Woo! That's actually really exciting. That's a really exciting draw. We have to play D here with Goyf because they have tokens for days. I guess. I mean, we could start trying to batter through the tokens as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, they just like block with the Spyro and all the tokens, and that's still a pretty bad attack for us, though. So, sit back. Still doesn't feel like a winning line specifically because we can't really deal with Abash. But Ascendant Spirit, definitely a nice one. Under our current circumstances. Hopefully they don't draw removal for it right now. The nightmare would be like something that kills it and they can still put Abash into hand. Ooh, it's sorcery speed though, so I mean it is Flame Slash, so it still beats it. At first I thought that was Firebolt. That's rough. They instantly draw the kill spell. Yep, you hate to see it. And they still get to put Abash into hand. That's exactly what we just said we couldn't afford to happen, right? So we're going to push a Swifty, and then unless we draw Thoughtseize, we're probably just going to lose. Alright, we need Thoughtseize. I don't know what else. Drown in the Lock would do it. We need Drown in the Lock or Thoughtseize. Misty Rainforest. Okay. Okay, well. Yeah, I don't think we can beat a Resolved Abash because we only have a trophy in the sideboard. No Maelstrom Pulse. I guess we could drown it in the Lock. We could also draw Snapcaster Mage to flash back Drown in the Lock next turn, so I guess we do technically still have a couple of outs. Opponent just doesn't cast Abash. The problem is they found something else that's good to do, too. So they're playing cautiously. It's giving us a couple more windows than we would otherwise have if they had just, like, slammed Abash into hand at the first opportunity and also played it at the first opportunity. We'd be dead. But as it is, we're actually given a lifeline. Draw Dark Confidant, which is horrible. But I'll play him. We're still, I guess, representing some forms of permission. Yep, Bob trades with Bolt. In the broad context of this matchup, that's a fine trade. They could obviously have untapped then Firebolted him, but then they'd be losing these cards, so once again, the opponent punished for playing a little bit more cautiously, and now kind of realizing that, they just go for the Abash. And they still don't attack into the Goyf, though. Alright, well, give us an out. It's Snow-Covered Swamp, so we can finally cast Lurrus, but my goodness. We're getting pretty unlucky here in what is a bad matchup, right? So we can buy back Ascendant Spirit, which I guess is probably better on average than buying back Bauble. And I'll just immediately activate it before they can draw like instant speed removal. Okay, well. If opponent has a couple bricks in hand, then maybe we're getting somewhere. Of course, Firebolt in the graveyard makes that basically impossible, and then they just light up into Lightning Bolt and Flame Slash. Alright, I concede. That was rough. Really cool deck to play against, but as I say, I think it's a bad matchup here. We've seen the power of Sultai. I think we're now going to see the downside of Sultai at policing aggro relative to Rock or Jund. But we'll give it our best. Trophy, Brutality, Fatal Push. Ether Gust doesn't really thrill me here, but I'm sure we're still supposed to play it. You could see like a Damping Sphere maybe, but I'm not going to play that game. They're way too value positive to play like a static hate piece that just slows them down, in my opinion. So, I actually think I'm probably cutting Forces of Negation. It can be tough to have double blue. I don't want the 1 for 2. Cut a single Thoughtseize. I could see cutting 2 Thoughtseizes, but we gotta cut Dark Confidant too. I think I like this well enough to run it this way. Alright, it's a 1-lander. The 1-land has Fatal Push, or the 1-land can cast Fatal Push and the rest of the hand's really nice, but I think we just lose if we whiff on the land, so I think I'm supposed to mulligan. We have a really much better 60 post side, but of course then we'll mull to a no land 6 while the OP keeps 7. We gotta go to 5. And it's a 1-land 5 right back where we started. Keep. And... this sucks. Okay, whatever. Whatever. Pretty much handed an auto loss here. What can you do? I gotta get Watery Grave here because we're gonna Inquisition now, and so then we can Thought Scour into our missing second land next turn if we don't draw it automatically. But yeah, a bad matchup when you take that deep of a mulligan. Probably not gonna get you there. So OP with 6 spells in hand. Valakut Awakening can be a land as well. We just take one of these Soulscar Mages, but I'm about ready to consider this one just about lost already. Okay, they play the Stoneforge rather than the Soulscar Mage. Fair enough, I guess. Alright, we don't draw the land, so a main phase Thought Scour it is. Into another non-land. Okay. Should have just kept that 1-land 7, apparently, but I think it was a correct mulligan. It was close, though, because the hand was pretty darn desirable outside of the 1-lander. I might have kept it on the draw. Or if we had a Thought Scour, I would have kept it. Oh, he's still just, like, not playing the Soulscar Mage. This is a very cautious mono-red player, and we miss the land for the 3rd turn. I'm tempted to scoop, especially because this Ascendant Spirit just dies to stomp and gives them something great to do. But we're going to play it because having missed these land drops, we can't afford to time walk ourselves either. And then if they draw the 3rd land, they have a very good, safe, proactive play of Bone Crusher Giant, which they do. So yeah, we're basically done for. Let's draw a 2nd land to keep playing. Or, nope, and we concede. Feels bad, man, but, you know, the pressure exerted by these aggro decks on specifically Sultai, it really applies pressure to the points at which our deck can fail, and really punishes us ultimately for leaning a little too hard into the color blue. So there you go. Maybe a little bit of a dose of realism for one of the reasons that Sultai is not the best BGX deck, but we saw a lot of really good incentives to play it against other non-aggro decks as well. So overall, pretty representative matches, if you ask me. Well, there you go, friends, and as I said right at the end there, this was a pretty representative Sultai experience, wouldn't you say? We saw the blue splash really, really thrive in the first 2 matches, giving us a dimension that a normal mid-range deck will never have access to. Interaction on the stack, plus more generally, even if we're not interacting on the stack, doing a lot more things at instant speed. We also have some high value generating floors on cards like Quattle and Snapcaster Mage. So the blue really, really shining there, you have to say. And we also saw the blue really fail us in the final round against mono red aggro, and that is to be expected. I've identified this on the channel over and over if you've seen me play Sultai. That is that basically there is an opportunity cost in a mid-range deck, especially against aggro decks, including Blood Moon ones like we just played, to add that third color, because the third color decreases consistency, increases vulnerability to Blood Moon, and increases the pain you take from your own land base. But, if you're looking at adding, like, red for Jund against mono-red aggro, that's going to do you a lot of good. Like, the red cards are going to be great. You can cast some of them under Blood Moon. It's fine, basically. Maybe about the same as green-black rock on the whole, but blue is definitely nowhere near as well-positioned as red out of Jund or straight green-black rock would be in those matchups, and we saw that here. We had a fail rate with being able to cast all of our spells, basically. We had a fail rate with efficiency. If we had managed to achieve the efficiency, maybe by drawing different lands, we would have had a fail rate with the amount of pain that we were taking, and it's all for the payoff of blue, which is not really much of a payoff compared to playing like a deck with a bunch of Scavenging Oozes and a higher quantity of removal, for example. So we see the eternal conundrum of Sultai rise up here yet again. If you're playing a well-designed Sultai deck, which this is, you are playing a very powerful collection of cards. These are 3 very powerful colors in Modern, make no mistake. At the same time, there is always the sense with Sultai that the whole may not be that much greater than the sum of its parts, right? I think we're getting closer to it, but maybe this deck, if Astrolabe still existed, would be like right where it needed to be. Then again, the entire meta would look different if Astrolabe still existed, right? But anyway, thank you. Those are my thoughts on the list. Thank you once again to Bobby for a very well-designed and fun-to-pilot list here. And now let's talk a little bit about how to beat it with other BGX midrange decks. So for the broad strategic concerns, you've heard me talk a lot about mid-range mirrors on the channel before. I won't waste too much time doing the same thing over again. The one thing that I'll say on the strategic front is that you have to be prepared for a ton of instant speed interaction. That means think more carefully before, for example, turning your own Dark Confidant sideways, because there's a million things they could flash in to block it and be happy to do so. Snapcaster Mage, even if they're not able to snap anything back, they are stopping you from pulling ahead with Dark Confidant, so they will make that trade equal on tempo and keeping you from pulling away on card advantage. But of course, the nightmare would be to get your Bob blocked by a cantripping Quattle, and that would just suck, so you can't do that. And also, when you're, for example, considering whether or not your discard will blank, against, like a rock mirror, for example, there are so many fewer. There is such a smaller density of cards that they can realistically be holding up. Against a Sultai deck like this, there's a lot of things they could be holding up. So on average, you're better rewarded for checking the hand. If you're not sure, they got like 2 cards in the hand, maybe they're sandbagging a couple lands, maybe they've got something irrelevant in hand that's just dead, like a dead removal spell or something, but maybe not. Maybe it's a good time to force a Snapcaster Mage out, or maybe they're holding a Thought Scour for the end step and they'll Thought Scour into something sorcery speed that you could take, or maybe you're forcing Drown in the Lock to trade with your discard spell rather than with something more impactful. So do realize that they can more likely be holding up something, and therefore that affects your play pattern with discard spells more so than it would in basically any other mid-range mirror. On top of that, if you're playing something like Klothys, for example, don't assume that if Klothys resolves and you're on Jund, you're probably going to run away with the game, because a card like Ether Gust out of Sultai is probably going to be in against you and can definitely answer it in a way that Destroy effects, of course, could not. And then you just that's basically the only major difference with the broad strategy as opposed to any other mid-range mirror. So let's zero in on the play patterns against specific cards. I already did kind of mention Ether Gust, but for Snapcaster Mage, of course, this is just even more incentive to attack the graveyard. And with respect to Snapcaster specifically, you know that they... Like, if I'm on this deck and I'm against a mid-range mirror, I'm very happy to take a 2-for-1 with Snapcaster into Thought Scour, like on turn 3, assuming nothing else totally game ending is going on that early. I'm just basically looking for any reasonable 2-for-1. And Snapcaster for Thought Scour is a really reasonable 2-for-1, so keep that in mind. Don't feel like if you're not getting absolutely blown out by Snapcaster, it's fine. You should try to deny this 2-for-1 whenever possible. Again, this can be by like casting a discard spell to force it out of their hand at a suboptimal time. It can be by playing a little bit more reactively with stuff like Scavenging Ooze and Nile Spellbomb than you would against, for example, a Jund deck, where like clearing things out right away and then doing something else sorcery speed is usually what makes sense there. So Snapcaster Mage, you gotta respect the blowout, but you've also gotta respect the little 2-for-1s, the early 2-for-1s, and Snappy, of course, a very powerful, early way to pressurize Planeswalkers. Remember that as well. If you see Snapcaster Mage and Dark Confidant in the same deck, they are, of course, both human wizards. If you don't know anything else about the deck, it's probably correct to name human on the chance that they could be, maybe playing like Tireless Tracker or something like this. Probably not in a Lurrus deck, but you get the point. But, if you do see another 3-drop that wouldn't exist alongside Lurrus, like Vendilion Click, that can be a way to name a different type as well. Also, you see snakes are very difficult for us to trade with in combat in any kind of a fair and advantageous way. This, therefore, is another good Plague Engineer target. So, Plague Engineer, fantastic. Fantastic against Sultai, because they have a ton of X-for-1s. Some of them are hard to answer without Plague Engineer, and they also have Tarmogoyfs, right? So, Plague Man trading Death Touch with the Goyf, it's a little bit of a tempo loss for you, but sometimes you just have to trade with the Goyf somehow. That's a good enough way to do it, right? Plague Engineer also not going to run afoul of Lightning Bolts or other ways to trade with him at extreme resource parity outside of a few Fatal Pushes, and the Fatal Pushes will be stretched thin as it is against you, so Plague Engineer, a high-value card here. You can also, if you're against Bobby's list exactly, catch an Ascendant Spirit with Plague Engineer as well, if it hasn't had a chance to level up yet. So very small creatures overall, at least to start on the Sultai half of the table. Do bear that in mind. Graveyard management is important on your own side of things too, with being able to perhaps consider keeping your own graveyard clear, all else being equal, with Drown in the Loch in mind. So if you have like a Scavenging Ooze, on average it makes more sense to like clean up their graveyard to take care of Snapcaster Mage targets and stuff. But if they just have some lands in there, and you can maybe do something else desirable, like grow your Skoos by eating a creature out of your own graveyard, well, maybe that makes their Drown in the Lochs worse too. Just consider that. For sure. At the end of the day, it can be tough to completely control the graveyards against a Thought Scour deck, because at instant speed for only 1 mana, they can fill either graveyard a little bit back up while cantripping. That can be a little bit tough, but if they're sideboarding heavily, maybe they trim around the edges with a Thought Scour or 2. Who knows for sure? Otherwise, Force of Negation is a card that you should probably not play around and not really expect, because this should come out in mid-range mirrors most of the time. Maybe the biggest exception is Jund on when the Sultai player is on the draw, because they might think, well, I'm going to struggle to beat Renin 6 or Klothys or something like that on curve most of the time, so maybe they leave in a Force or 2 on the draw, but in general, wouldn't worry about it. It's slow. Like, just straight-up permission is not the greatest in a mid-range mirror. Something like Drown in the Loch that's modal, permission or removal, is great, but straight-up permission, not great. 2-for-1ing yourself in a mid-range mirror, not great. Definitely would not worry too much about Force of Negation. Other than that, I don't know what else there is to say. If you see a Sultai deck, even if it's not exactly like Bobby's, you can probably expect a reasonably high land count, basic land count that is, especially if you see this card, if you see Icefang Quattle. They just kind of have to accommodate the snow somehow, so don't get too crazy about trying to like field and trophy them out of the game. Not going to happen as easily as it would against other 3-color mid-range decks, in addition to graveyard management, which also applies to Tarmogoyf, of course, as always, just like everything else we've said, and applies to Lurrus. Think about snow permanent management. In other words, when you're calculating, okay, what could they have? Do I attack? Just, it's just one other thing to think of, but still try to take the time to do it. Count how many snow permanents they have. Can they flash in like a second Quaddle to give both of them Death Touch? Can they fetch another snow-covered basic land or perhaps an Ice Tunnel at instant speed? These are things to bear in mind. You have to do a lot to account for everything a Sultai deck could be doing. It is definitely that much harder because they are so instant speed relative to normal mid-range, but that's part of what makes it fun in skill testing. So those are my tips against Sultai should you encounter a bug deck in the wild, should you be so lucky. So thanks again for watching. That's it for this Grim gameplay, and I will see you for the next one.